Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are on day 64 and we're going to pick up exactly where we left off yesterday. So thanks so much for joining me, Lily Code, on another episode of 100 Days of Code. It's a little song for you guys. Can't really sing but I like it anyway. So let's just keep on going. So what we were doing is working on the submission of this cart. Well, we just really set up some of the validation when we submit the cart, and then we're going to check if the form is valid to submit it to the server. So just having a listen to Max's complete React tutorial as always, and going to continue to code then. So the first thing we'll do is, rather than checking if the form is valid, we'll check if the form is not valid, because what we want to do in the case that the form is not valid is just return and not submit anything. So we can just return, get out of this function, and not do anything for the time being. So we'll leave that like that for the moment, and then we'll continue on with our validation and implement the case that the form is indeed valid. And in order to do that, we're going to use useSTATE to track the state of the form. So in order to use state, we must also import this from React. So we'll do that, use state, and then we can use that within our component declaration, which is this, our const checkout. This is the function declaration for the checkout component, and hooks must be called inside a function declaration for a component. So in here now we can use state. I'll put it underneath these, so I'll say const form is valid, form inputs valid, and set form inputs valid. And we will use state, and we'll initialize this with an object today. So what we want to do is pass in 4 different things here, so we can just combine all of these into our one state management. So we can say, and just create an object. So we'll say name true, so we want the name to be, and we'll initialize it as true. We'll also say street true again. Lots of truths here. A city true again, we will initialize it to true. And then we have our PO postcode, and this can also be true. So perfecto selecto, and let's continue. So I just make up a load of words, by the way. Perfect. If anyone is confused, sorry, and if I speak too quickly or something, do let me know, because I want to make sure that anybody who wants to enjoy these videos can enjoy them. So any suggestions, do let me know. If me making up random words is making it difficult for non-English native speakers to understand me, do let me know. I'll cut it out. So it's just natural. I'm not doing it on purpose, but I'm sure if someone asked me to change it, I could do that. So just to say, I want to make sure everybody is included and everybody can learn who wants to watch these videos. That's the main prerogative. So what we're going to do now is we can use this state management that we have just set up. So now we can copy this and use it in order to set that. So after all of this stuff, once we have all the different things being checked there, I'll just add set form validity, open up my object notation here and say name, entered name is valid. We want to assign it to these things up here. So I'll actually just copy them because it might be easier. Comma, then we'll say street, city, and PO, and copy these over. So entered street is valid, comma, this should be a semicolon, and then entered city is valid, and paste that in. So these are booleans that are going to switch from true to false dependent on whether or not these particular inputs are indeed valid by the validation functions that we've set on them, which is just checking for the name, street and city, that they're not empty. So that's the only validity we have. And then for the postcode, it's an English postcode, we have that it is 5 characters. So we're checking that it's 5 characters long. That's the exact length. So once all of these conditions are met, the top 3 are not empty and the postcode is 5 characters, we can then set the form input is valid to be valid. Then this will evaluate to true, all of our bits will be true and we'll be good to go. So what are we missing here? We have this little squiggly line and we can see it's telling us we need a comma, which indeed we do. So we'll add that in, we'll save, the squiggly line goes away and we're no longer in the squiggles, we're in the wiggles. So cool. So what we're doing now is we have our useSTATE being used to track the form inputs valid object. We can set this object to new values with the set form inputs valid. This is just how normal useSTATE works in React. We've covered this loads in these 100 days, so I do hope that makes sense, and if not, probably watch some of my other videos or have a little look into the React hook useSTATE documentation. I'll pull it up really quickly just so you know what to look for when you do see it if you're a complete beginner. So React useSTATE hook, and this will come up. The React documentation is super duper. I really do like it, and I think even for beginners, you know, I remember when I was first starting, some of the documentation was blowing my mind. But once you get a bit more experience, you learn to read the documentation more. But the React documentation actually is okay for beginners, I think. So this is what this looks like. You can have a read. We've covered this a lot in this 100 days. So just to show you, moving on, gotta keep it snappy, gotta keep it quick, gotta learn. So now we have our set form inputs is valid, which is resetting the state of this form inputs valid object that we've created, and what we're doing is rewriting it with these truthy or falsy values. So that's what's going on, and we'll continue. Yeah. Awesome. So what we can do now is use this object, and in order to access the different properties of an object, it's like the classes, you use a dot. So what we will do down here is outside of our input, just outside the input here, we will add a JSX expression that we want to evaluate, and this will be if the form inputs is not. So form inputs valid. So if the form inputs valid name, we want to access the name property. If it is not valid, so if the name property on the form inputs valid object is not true, if it's falsy, if the name property on the form inputs valid object is not true, yes, there you go. Then, and please show this paragraph, so we'll add our p tag, and we will just add in a paragraph here to say please enter a valid name, and this will show in the case that that input is not valid. So we will say please enter a valid name, your name cannot be nothing, baby, no money messing. So, but it literally can't. That is the check that we are performing. So I'll copy this, and we can add this to all of our different inputs, and obviously we will just change, maybe not obviously, everything is obvious when you know. That is literally my, you know, what's the quote? It's my quote. Yeah, everything is easy when you know how. You need to be told at first. So if you don't get any of this, don't worry, just keep watching, keep practicing yourself. Eventually it all clicks. I shouldn't say, obviously, nothing is obvious until it's been explained. We all need to learn, we all need to grow, we all need to gather information along the way. So Always apologize when I use that word, obviously, because it's not. So please enter a valid street. We're just changing this error message because it's for a different input. So we're making it relevant for each of these specific inputs. Please enter a valid postal. No, I'm only messing. Post code. We will update that post code. We just called it here. We're just using that as an ID, so we can give it a slightly shorter ID, and the ID again shouldn't even have spaces. So if we were to make this postcode, it would be the looking like this, but you know, we just don't need that big long thing. All it is an ID to access that particular input field. So postal is fine, and then down here we will say enter a valid city. You can't live in Timbuktu. I think you can actually. Yeah, that's a real place. Anyway, so let's continue. Cool. So let's see. Let's go back. Let's save. Let's try to confirm our cart and see if these are actually being entered. Street is assigned valued but is never used. That should be okay. Yes. Let's just take a whirl. Let's take a whirl. I'm okay with that. So we will click order. So we didn't get our validation messages. Entered PO is assigned, but it's never used. Did we not hook these up to our refs? Name input ref, street input ref, PO input ref, city input ref. So these are our references which are hooking up what's entered in here. This is how we access those values. So so yes, we never replaced our entered name in here, so that's where that problem is coming from. So this is checking if the entered street is valid, and the validity check is that it's not empty, that we've actually typed something into that box. Same goes for entered PO. That should be down here. We want to check that that is more, or that it is exactly 5 characters, then this will be true. Same for city. Same for city, baby. So we'll just paste that in. We will save, and we'll take a goosey gander at what is going on. So let's see. Let's reload this page just to be safe. Gotta be safe. We will add something to our cart here. Let's check out our cart. Well, don't worry too much about safety. Just be, you know, go about your day in a logical way and don't be over concerned. Just live your life. Sorry. I just thought I shouldn't be telling people to be safe. They can be their own judge of their own actions. So just do that and you'll be fine. And then we'll click. Then we'll click order. So great. So we have our form here now. And what about, let's just add in something blank. So we're not getting, do we need to click confirm? Of course, we need to click confirm because this is all happening when we submit. So let's put in confirm. So we're still not getting error messages, but that's okay. Not too concerned. We'll keep the show moving on. Our cancel button isn't working either. So we have a few things going wrong here, but that's okay. We're learning, we're on the right track. I'm sure of it. So it is. So we can see here on our confirm button, we actually don't even have anything running. We just have something that should be firing on our props on cancel, but we actually haven't even hooked that up yet. That's why that's not working. And then as to why the validation isn't working, your girl's not sure, but we'll also figure that out too. Do I need to do something with this object? It's just we'll worry about that in a moment. Let's continue. So just watching the video, sorry, yeah, I'm just watching the video here now. I'll actually fast forward because he's just doing all the stuff that we've just gone ahead and done ourselves, because I had a feeling what was coming down the line, which is maybe why we got it wrong. Why it's not working, but no, I don't think so, so I'll just keep watching. I did replace. No, I didn't. Look, copy and pasting, guys, you have to be careful, especially for me, clearly, because you know, I didn't replace these. Now we're still not getting our name input field giving us that error message, so that's a second problem. But the first thing we definitely need to do is hook them up. They're not hooked up to the right thing. Maybe even the fact that we just have, no, that wouldn't be it. I was going to say maybe the fact that we have name hooked up everywhere could be throwing it off, but I don't think that's the problem. We should still see an error on the name box if indeed everything was working. The other ones no, because we hadn't linked them together. So we'll just paste those in as they should be. We didn't need to just change the text, we needed to change the form validity check that's showing or hiding this tag paragraph, dependent on whether or not the form is valid. So now let's have a goosey gander and see what the crack is. Oh, look. So that's great. One of them's working. I'm over the moon. Great. Okay, so one of them is working. That's great. Cool. So we can see we have some functionality there. That's great. And why aren't the other ones working? So the postcode, if we remember, now the city was checking for emptiness, just like all the other ones. So entered city is valid. Entered street is valid. Entered name is valid. Entered postcode is valid. Hot diggity damn. Entered city. Yes, yes, yes. City input ref. Is that what that's called? Yes. PO input ref. PO input ref. Entered PO. Entered PO. Yes. Entered street. Entered street. Entered name. Entered name. Right, okay, so at a first glance I don't really see what's wrong, but let's just continue because you can go down rabbit holes, you know, and I don't want to do that, so yeah. So let's try that anyway. That's cool. So we also have a CSS class that we can add in the case that the form is invalid, so that we don't just get like this, you know, error message with just a random message there, that we actually get so what was going on? Confirm. Okay, so yes, we want this to be red, we want the box to highlight slightly, we want a little bit more va-va-voom on our inputs, so we'll put that in place. And let's go, let's do it. So back to our code, and down here on our div we have, so we're going to go to what one is showing for us. So we have enter valid city. So let's start there just so we can actually see this working. So rather than have our classes dot control, we're going to conditionally show an invalid class or the classes dot control class and an invalid. So we're going to always show classes dot control, and then we will either show an invalid class in addition to classes to the class control if we have an invalid class. So this will hopefully all make sense once we start actually doing this. So we're going to stick classes dot control into its own little JSX ditty here, so we can stick them together with our backticks. That's what's going on. And then we'll add another one. So what we want to do is check if form input valid. So if the form input is valid, and this time we are looking at the city, so dot city, we want the city property, and this will tell us if that particular property of the form input's valid object is truthy. And in the case that it is truthy, then we don't want to add any class. So the first thing in a ternary will evaluate if it's true. So this is in the true case, and in the case that it's false, we want to add classes and this should just be by itself. This should just be like this, classes.invalid. So we'll also add the invalid class if form inputs valid object.city, the city property on that is false. So this should be invalid. And then if we go and take a look at our checkout module.css, we should see here that we do indeed have an invalid class, which will be conditionally shown in the instance that our form is valid, because that's what we've been hooking up this whole time. So I'll just save, I'll come back, let's have a little goosey gander, let's have a look. Order, no city for you. Okay, so it did not work, that is okay. We are still going ahead with this, full steam, full steam. So something we can actually do as well is, rather than sticking all of this logic down here like this, which just might be slightly messy, we can extract this, create a constant, and then just use the constant name. So this will be constant city control classes. Well, let's say CSS classes, because I think that's more clear for me, for the sake of an extra 3 letters. And then we will paste in the backticks that we've got going on there, and we will add in our semicolon. So now this is what we're going to use instead down below, just to keep this a bit tidier down in the form, because there's already a lot going on. So if you can extract some stuff further up. And another thing to say, like, that used to really confuse me as well when I first started. I knew things should be extracted into smaller functions and stuff. I knew that you should keep your code in small bite-sized chunks if you can. Like, there's different rules all around, or recommendations I should say, like how many lines of code one given function should be. I think it's like something crazy low, like they recommend like 25 lines or something. Maybe I just pulled that completely out of thin air, but I knew that that was the approach, that you shouldn't have big long functions doing loads of stuff. You should try and break it down into smaller functions that then call them functions. And I could not figure that out for a while, how to pass in the parameters into the function, like how to get it all working if you wanted to do something like that. And now I get it. So just to let you know, like, these things take time. It's with continued practice that you'll get there. Like, I was a developer working in companies and not knowing how to break down functions. Like, I'm just being honest, you know, it takes time. And to be honest, my bosses and the people I work with knew that, because you have to start somewhere. You're not expected to know everything when you first start off, and it is a progression, it is learning. So don't be ever afraid to ask questions. It's better to ask questions than be stuck for ages and pretend like you're getting on fine and not tell people, do you know what, I don't actually understand this, can someone explain this to me? A tip I always say is, if someone says, yes, you can explain it, or yes, I can explain it to you, get out your screen recording software, ask them, is it okay if I record what we're going to do on the screen here now? Although, in saying that, the amount of screen recordings I have from the past in my previous job, I was like, okay, I'm going to record this now, is that okay? Some people said no, some people said yes, always ask permission, and you never bloody looked back on them again. Well, sometimes I did actually. So, and it's better to have it there and, you know, not use it than not have it and not use it. You get the sentiment. So, you know, take notes. Everyone is learning, you know. If you're starting off in the beginning, it takes time to learn. So just don't be hard on yourself. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We all start somewhere, and anybody with a bit of common sense will understand that and be kind and help you on your journey. And if that's not the case, well, you just asked the wrong person. Don't ask them again. Like, you've just learned a lesson, or maybe they were just having a bad day. You know, we're all entitled to that as well. So ask your questions, guys. Oh. It's still true though. So we're going to do the same thing for all of our different you know, input boxes here. So we have city, we have name, we have PO box, and we have street. So let's implement that. So surely this is a lot of code duplication. But Max normally does it the longhand way and then brings it down because he likes to show you. And you know what? It's very smart actually, because as a coder who has gained enough experience to make things work, but maybe not all the experience to make things as lean as they should be, to show us the unlean way and then make it lean is hugely helpful, because this is something that I myself can definitely do with some improvement on. So we have city, street, name and PO. And don't forget to update it everywhere, because we've already done that a few times today. So now we want street here. We are accessing the street property of this object. Here we want name. Coolaboola. Let's do the same. Get the name. You know what I mean, Baby Jane. And then here we'll do PO. So perfect. Okay, cool. And let's keep on watching. So Max did just say that there's a lot of duplication, and two different ways of reducing this will be to have our own custom hook or to extract out our inputs into its own custom component, which we have done both of in this course already. For the time being, we're going to continue on with this approach. So what we need to do is actually implement these different CSS classes that are going to switch depending on whether or not we have a valid input, and apply the invalid class in the case that we do not. So the street control class of CSS needs to go into our street. So in here we want to add class name. So this should be on our overarching div. So where's our street? Up here. So this is going to use this instead. Then we want our name. We'll do the same. Grab our name, do the same. So we'll paste that in there. Then we'll have our PO. We'll do the exact same as well down here. And we're looking good. We're looking good, guys. Great. So let's just save, let's have a peek. Ah, baby. Seen some validation going on there. Oh, look, great. So our postal code is the only one that's working. And then city, we're getting an error message like, what is going on? Clearly, I've just done something else mad by copying names or something. City, street, name, PO. Cool. PO. Name, street, city, PO. Name, street, PO, city. Right, so let's just keep on watching for a minute, because you know, I don't want to just be here looking around. Sorry. So I'm just watching the video. I'm just gonna see, like, this should definitely be working out of the validation now, which it is not, but that's alright for tonight. I'm just not going to worry about it for a minute, because I feel like it will just come to me, like, although then sometimes when you go ahead and you keep going, you don't sort it out at the time. But it depends. Sometimes, you know, either approach can be good. Sometimes it's good to just continue on and then you spot it as you go. Other times, if you continue on and you start adding in more things, it gets worse. But I'm going to go with the continuing on approach this time, because that's just what's suiting me at this particular moment. And if you're studying and you're doing your work and you feel like doing it a certain way, then do that, because the most important thing is that you show up and you do it. So however you want to do it, just do it, you know. So yeah, I want to skip ahead, and that's okay. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll worry about this again. I mean, it's going to have to be fixed, so there's no big deal. Oh. Wow. Wow. So Max said that you cannot trust the validation that goes on the front end here, you know, and that you have to have server-side validation as well, because somebody can just change this. They can come in and circumnavigate it. They can go into your code and like just make changes. Oh, so here we have some stuff going on. That they can just go in and make changes and then you know, get your code sent to the server. So you need to have server-side validation as well. And he said there's also a video on that, so stay tuned. We will figure out how people can circumnavigate your validation on the front end and send dodgy requests to your back end. So that's going to be exciting. Yes, very, very good, Max. I'll actually make note of that and just make sure to link the video when we do it in the description box, because you know, people might be like, oh, that's so interesting. Tell me when that's happening, Leanne. So I will. I'll stick it in the description. So let me just pause and take a note. So note made, let's continue. Max is great. He knows everything. Well, look, we're all learning, you know. He's been coding for a very long time, since he was quite young. 13, I think. And he is same age as me, 31. So, fair play to him, you know. Brilliant. So by the time I've stacked up those many years, get ready for the courses, guys. Because they'll be coming your way. Let me tell you, baby. Why not, you know? Wonderful. Learn, learn, learn. I'm a continual learner. So, great. So now we're going to edit our cart, and we're going to actually hook all this together now in our cart. So, what we want to do is add a submit cart handler in our cart here. So here we have our cart items. So we'll just add another constant submit order handler. Submit order handler. And we will equal this to user data. And then this is going to be, we'll open up our function here. So down here in our checkout component, we'll pass this handler. So we can call it whatever we want, but let's call it our onConfirm prop. And we will equal this. So this is just a property we're passing through. And we'll pass it our submitOrderHandler when we run this, hook up this onConfirm property. So we'll say submitOrderHandler. Bada bing, bada boom. And we'll also just add it on cancel. Yes. So what we can do too is just move this down for better ease of reading. So I'll add in a bracket here. I'll leave that for the moment. I will tab this on over. I mean, do I have different spacing in different files, or am I going mad? Am I going mad? Yeah. Like, you're confusing me now. You're confusing me now. So that's okay. So we'll just add our other parentheses here, and we're just tabbing this in just so we can sort of see what we're doing here. So what I want to also add to this checkout is an on cancel property, and this is going to be hooked up to our props dot on cancel. So it's going to come in from this component. So props dot on close. There we go. Look, bada bing bada boom, baby. So yeah, so on confirm is the prop name. So now in our checkout we need to hook this up. We need to create this on confirm property that's going to be passed. So let's go to our checkout. And now, once we've done all of our validation, once we've checked everything, then we can get our props.onConfirm. And we'll do our brackets. And we want an object. So we'll have our name, which is our entered name. We'll have our street, which is our entered street. We will have our postcode and our city. So we'll have our city, which is entered city. And then we will have our PO code, which is our entered postal code. Entered PO. Hey, come on, mamma mia. Entered PO. Perfect. So let's save. No, thought I figured something out there. Let's just keep going. I did not. So now we can pass this information from our checkout component to our cart component. So in here, we can do something with our submitOrderHandler, and we're passing all of that object in as user data. So now we can do something with this user data. So we'll use our fetch. We're actually going to send this now to the backend. So we need to use our Firebase URL in order to tell it where it's going to go. So we'll get that up. So Firebase. Don't know why I made that like a song. So here we go. Here's our Firebase. We'll go to our Firebase console. We will get that URL that we are communicating with this backend at. So, and where we can send API calls like our fetch. So it's all going fetchly. No, that was a silly joke. So we'll come into our Max Complete React database here, and we'll go to our real-time database, and we will pull this URL. Cool. So let's copy this. Copy. And paste it in here to our fetch in our, not like that. We will cut this and paste this down below in our fetch parentheses. There you go. And this should be a post, I presume, or something else. So we'll post it to orders. Oh, that should be in here. So orders.js, and we need to pass a configuration object because this isn't going to be a get. So if it's a get, it will default. You don't need to pass in the configuration because it just knows if you don't pass an object configuring the fetch, that it's just going to be a get. But in our case, we're not getting something here. We are sending this information over. So we're posting it. We are posting it to the backend. So we need to specify that. So we'll say the method is going to be a post method. So great. We'll do a comma. We will say our body is going to be JSON dot stringify that mofo. Sorry. I said I wouldn't use explicitories. So we'll open up our object here, and I'll say user dot user data, comma, and our ordered items, which can literally just be all of the stuff in our cart context, because that's what's storing the items and the items. Great. And what I meant to do was go down here so I could add in some semicolons. And if we save, and if we try and send, let's see what happens. So we don't have an orders node in here, but by actually doing this, we should create it once everything is working properly. So let's add some stuff. So now we have one item in our cart. Let's do it. Oh yeah, so I need to fill out some stuff in here. So Lilly, my street, yeah, postcode PO123, it must be 5 characters, city, my city, and then let's confirm and see what happens. Explosion. So we're getting a 404. It could not post. What's our response like? Nada, nada, baby. Ooh. So this was what was sent. Great. So we do have our payload being sent, which is awesome. But it didn't send. It didn't get there. And that's okay, because we will figure that out again as she frantically looks at the clock being like, is this over yet? I'm only messing, guys. But you know, I was just, it's so nice when things are going well, really. But that is the name of the game, guys. Everything can't go swimmingly all the time, and it's about how you deal with it when things don't go well. Keep your calm. It's very, very, very important in coding. If you start getting all, ooh, then everything falls apart, and that's a good lesson for life, you know. Keep your calm, take a few breaths, take a walk if you need to, because as soon as you start losing your cool, the game is over with coding. You need to be able to logically think about what's going on, and especially if you're new, because even all of your logical thinking capabilities, you might not just have all the information in there yet to approach this with all the tools you need to solve it. So if you don't have all the tools and you start losing your cool, it's a lost game. Whereas if you don't have all the tools, but you're trying to be methodical, you're trying to think about the problem, it might just take a little bit more time, and as you take that time, you're gaining those tools. You're figuring out what it's not so you can figure out what it is, and that's all only possible if you keep your head together. Swear, really, in the beginning, first job, oh, you know, used to have meltdowns. Well, I didn't have a meltdown, but I'd be getting worried, thinking, oh, I'm not contributing, I haven't figured this out, this is taking me too long. And then you start worrying about that, and oh, am I going to get fired? And you know, and then it's just a downward spiral, and the last thing you're thinking about is solving the problem, which is just increasing all of your problems. So you do have to keep a calm head, and that's one of the big things I learned is, you know, you more learn how to handle yourself and situations that actually make you a better coder, as well as learning the code. It's about learning the skills that you need in alignment with being a coder. So how to search for Google errors, like how to not just copy the whole error, which all just comes with time, you know, it comes with time. So please do not be hard on yourself. Sending you love, you know, you will learn as you go. That's all you need to know. So let's continue. Give yourself a hug there. Well, just smile, you know, get those endorphins flowing. You deserve it. Enjoy something that you like today. Go for a little walk. I'm always telling you guys this. It's very important. Keep the spirits up and everything else will flow, you know. I know sometimes it's not easy. I don't want to just sit here and sound like a happy Sally all the time. Like, obviously we're not always happy all the time, and that's okay, but take a rest when you need a rest. Take a walk when you need a walk. Get away from the computer if that's what you need. Stay at the computer the days where you really are focused. You know yourself better than I can ever pretend to. This is only what works for me, so it is by no means a prescription. It's just my personal recommendation. Take it or leave it, guys. that's it really. But I hope it helps some people, that the day that they see this and they thought this was actually what I needed to hear. Thanks so much, Lily. You know, that's why I go on the waffles. Said that before as well. So look, thanks guys for joining me, and I hope my waffles help some people some days, because that's all you can do in this world. So now we're back in our cart component. We're still here. We didn't go anywhere. Cool. So we're going to create a new use state. We want to track the state of something else. I'm not even sure what it is yet, because I was waffling while he was talking. We were both talking at the same time. So it is submitting. So we're going to check whether or not the form is currently in a submitting state. So this is going to be based on the asynchronous function. So if the form promise for the fetch hasn't come back, if the promise being sent by the fetch hasn't come back yet, so we don't know yet whether or not the form is properly submitted, is submitting will be true, because it's currently still submitting. And then once it comes back, it'll go to false, and then we can continue on with what we're doing. So that's what we are going to do. So obviously when we have not obviously, everything is only obvious when you've been told, when you know how, when you've learned the skills that are then obvious. So again, not obvious, but we'll continue. So this should be set is submitting. So there we go. Now we have our function to set this state management variable that we've created called is submitting, and this is going to be equal to useSTATE. What happened there? So useSTATE, awesome. We'll add in our parentheses. Oh my god, what did I do? That's not even what I was typing. So this is going to be equal to useSTATE. We'll add our parentheses. We're going to initialize this is submitting to false. Yeah, because we're going to presume we're not submitting when we start the rendering of this particular component. So let's continue. So now down in our submitOrderHandler, we can do a little bit of jiggling about. So this is going to be an asynchronous function, because we're waiting for this to come back from the back end. So we'll say async, and then once you have an async, you need an await. So we'll say await, and all this is saying is this is an asynchronous function. Some information is going to go off, and we're awaiting the results of this fetch. So in the case that that is happening, we can set that state management variable that we just created is submitting to true, because it is indeed submitting until we get back this answer. So we will say, that's not what we want to say, but okay, baby. So we'll say set is submitting, and we will pass in the value here of true, because we are waiting. It is in the process of submitting. So cool. This is just a flag that's going to allow us to start and stop things if we are submitting, which is what we want to do. We don't want to continue on with different actions if we haven't even got that information back, because it will cause errors. So this is just all what you do when you're coding. So so sometimes I confuse myself with my hyperness and all, like, but just be yourself, guys. That's all you can do. Who cares? So we won't add the constant there. We will, and just try and bring some joy into people's lives, like, don't be too serious. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take other people seriously. Just have a bit of faith in yourself and get on with your life. That would be my advice. And get out for a walk, touch the grass. What more is there? So we'll set is submitting. Such strange advice, but I don't think it's strange at all, really. Okay, so set is submitting. So yes, once we've got back our fetch, then so if it's come out of here, we know that okay, that was successful. So then we can set is submitting to well, it may not have been successful, but it's finished at least. Either it's got back something the thing we wanted or it didn't, but it's finished doing what it's doing. So it is no longer in the process of submitting. So we can set is submitting to false there. And then we also want to create another state management to check if it did indeed submit. So we'll say set did submit, and we'll set this here to true. And we best create this, not true, to true. And then we will just create this up above because this doesn't exist yet. So back up where all of our different things are. No, that's not what I want to do. I want to duplicate this line. I want to create set did submit here, and then this should be did submit. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so now we have these two states. We can actually use these down in our component where we're returning things. Down here. So we'll just create a new constant and we'll call this cart modal content. And so it is. And what we will also do is just the reason we're creating this cart modal content is we want to take the content from in here out of there, get it out of there. So we'll say cart modal content is equal to, and in order to have this equal, and you see that was all on the same level there, we need a wrapping div to be the parent for all of these inner divs. So we will create a fragment. Yo, we got a fragment. Yo, we got a what? React fragment. So we'll just say fragment here. We'll close this off. Perfect. And then we'll paste in all of this code. So our cart modal content. And just leave our modal tags there. So sorry, here, making my face itchy. And then we'll paste this in. Cool. The formatting is crazy. That would drive you crazy, baby. So let's just do something here before my brain pops. So we will indent this, or someone else's brain. I know how much this annoys other coders. It used to not really annoy me too much, and then when I seen how much it annoyed other coders, I was like, maybe it's really unprofessional of me that this doesn't annoy me. And it's just hard to see what's going on. I mean, it makes perfect sense why it would annoy programmers. You know, it's a tool to see what's happening, simple tool of indentation. So if you're going to leave everything all over the place, you're going to have trouble with your errors, which when you're just new, you're like, meh, I'm just coding along here, everything is fine. But you do realize the importance of it. Probably someone on their first day will be like, this is very important, but it took me a while to pick that one up, so that's okay. And I think we should have fragment already imported because we don't get no errors, but let's just check. Yes, it did it automatically for us, so cool about it. Cool. And then what else do we need? Baby Jane. Who's Baby Jane? It's a little baby called Jane. I just don't even know who I'm referring to. So then down underneath our React fragment that we just created, we can add another constant. So we'll say const, and this is going to be is submitting modal content, and here we'll add a paragraph, and the paragraph we're going to say is sending order data. So sending order data dot 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 dot. Cool. And then what we will do is we will conditionally show our cart modal content once we are not submitting. So perfect. So we need our JSX statement. We need to add in our is submitting state management variable here. So submitting, and this is saying if it is not submitting, then show us our cart modal content. So we only want to see this particular information, the total amount, and allowing us to check out if we are indeed not submitting. So that's what we're doing. Yes, and then if we are submitting, we want to show this message so people are aware of what's going on. So we'll add another JSX statement. We'll say if is submitting. So if it's the case that we are indeed in the process of submitting, then show a paragraph which has self-closed itself, bada bing, bada boom. And what we want to show is submitting modal content, but we can't just add this in like this. This is going to actually be a paragraph that's put on the screen that just says this long word, which is not what we want. We want to actually send over that data, and in order to do that, you add in your curly brackets, you got your syntax highlighted, and you know it's all good, everything is working, and we save. So let's go. Great. Yes, and then we also need one more. When we're finished submitting, we also want to inform the user of that. So we'll create another constant here, and we will say did submit modal. So in the case that it did indeed submit modal content, and this is going to be equal to another paragraph, and we will close this off. Great. And we'll say successfully sent the order in here. Successfully sent the order. We got your order, mate. Everything is great. Enjoy your delicious sushi. Cool. That's how I feel when I get delicious sushi anyway. So that excited. That's how excited I feel. So we'll add our semicolons here because this is just a constant declaration equal to something. We can add a semicolon at the end of that line. And we need to add our third block in the case that this is the case. So we do the same thing. We say did submit. So we'll say did submit. Yes, perfect. Then show this final block. Successfully sent the order. Baby, you're making me crazy. So cool. And then we also want to include this same check with our previous ones to say like if it did not submit first of all. So if it did not submit. So if not did submit, sorry, is what I mean. And then show the cart modal content. Yeah, we always want to show the is submitting modal content. So this shouldn't be in a paragraph actually. Sorry guys, we should not. Our paragraph is already up here. So we don't need to be sticking this in another paragraph. I got confused. What we actually want to do is just add, just add in that word, right? And because this is already within our JSX statement there, well then it's going to pop in that paragraph first. So we don't need paragraph, but we do need our curly parentheses, but we already have this JSX expression calculating something for us, so we don't need to add it twice. That's what's going on there. So we just leave it like so, we save, and we should be all good. Although it looks like we have an error. And then down here, if we are submitting, yeah. So if we did submit, we want to show the did submit modal, which is this message. So, okay, cool. Let's save. Let's reload. What's going on? Why have we got an error? Unexpected token. Okay, we'll figure it out. Look, so our error just went away. That's great. I love when that happened. We just obviously hadn't finished off our code or our page hadn't reloaded. That's all good. Do reload your page if something isn't. So I find in React, this is something I found actually. I find in React that sometimes the page just doesn't reload, which it should, because we have our terminal down here running. This should be running in real time. We should be getting our updated errors down there. So that should just be spinning and updating our page as we're going, because that's literally what this is doing. It's spinning up our page. So I do find sometimes with React you need to reload the page. I used to find with Angular a different JavaScript front-end framework doing very, very similar stuff to React, just in a slightly different way. That's probably why I'm picking up React quite easily as well. I did have previous experience with the Angular framework, so all in time, guys. Be kind to yourself. It comes with practice. You know what I mean? I have 4 years experience. I didn't just hop on this thing yesterday. So if you did, be kind to yourself. I was all over the place in the beginning. That's okay. Very valuable skill. Keep at it. That's what I would say. But with Angular, what I found was that not that the page wouldn't reload as such, but sometimes some errors would like sort of hang. So you might have an error on the screen and you'd be going around for ages trying to figure out what your error was, trying to figure out why it wasn't happening. You were reloading your page, you weren't sure. And the thing that you had to do sometimes in Angular was just stop your server spinning up, or your... Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're serving it. So stop it running on your local host and start it up again. So you do this CTRL+C to stop it. And then you'd find as soon as you spun it back up and you did your npm start or your yarn start, depending on what package manager you were using, that then it would just work. So, you know, always if you're having an error and you really don't understand it, now in the beginning, there's probably just something wrong that you need to keep looking around and you will find it. You know, these errors can't stay there hidden forever. We'll catch them with our magnifying glass and our mustache. Where are you, error? But you know, so sometimes a good thing to do is to reload your page and start up your local host again, spin it up again, and that can solve errors. So just keep that in mind. If you've been looking around for a while and it's just not making sense to you, those two things are valuable. And look at that, guys, we've hit the hour. Though I'm so happy to be here with you. I don't know why I was so excited there, but like I just did not think it was an hour. Probably at least 10 minutes of absolute waffle, but I hope it was encouraging. I love that you all come here and hang out with me while I code, so thank you so much. Like, the appreciation boom is just sky high. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have an absolutely fantastic, fantabulo, super de-duper day, and just go out there and give someone a big smile, because we all need that. So thanks so much for joining me. Really, really appreciate it. Catch me next time. Lily Code. Like and subscribe if you like what you're seeing, and thanks very much.